Well, folks, I'm going to do something a little bit different inside this tutorial, and it's not the best job security for me, but I'm going to tell you why Photoshop is not good to do this certain task, and I'm going to show you how to do it inside of Illustrator. So, again, it's not the best job security, but I think it's important to know sometimes where Photoshop leaves off, where sometimes it doesn't work so good for a task, and where you can use a program like Illustrator to kind of fill in the gap here. So what I want to do is create a gradient that's along a curved object. I'm going to show you an example here in Photoshop and why it doesn't work. So let's create a rectangular marquee here on its own layer. I'm going to get a gradient here, and I've got a light green to dark green linear gradient, and I'm going to click and drag. Deselect, and you can see how the gradient flows along this object the same from top to bottom. Okay, light green to medium green to dark green, so it gradiates along that object here. What happens if you want to do this to a curved object? So I would maybe draw that curved object first, so let's draw it with a path. And use the pen tool here. So just create a curved object just for demonstrations here. Alright, and if I press Control Enter or Command Return on a Mac, I can turn that into a selection. Now let's fill it with the same gradient, and you're going to see what happens. First of all, if I go linear, if I go across, we get bad results. We get light green up here, we get dark green over here, because it's a linear gradient, and that's what it's supposed to do. So I could try to go from here to here, but watch what happens. We get light green down here, light green up here, and it starts to get a little dark here, but it's not uniform along this object here, okay? It's not a gradient that conforms to the path. So that's kind of where Photoshop leaves off, okay? We could maybe come in here and transform this object and warp it and do crazy things with it, but it's really not worth it. So let's use Illustrator to do it. It's very, very easy. We're going to create a stem for this flower here as an example. I'm telling you, you're going to be amazed how easy this is. Alright, so this first thing we'll do here is let's create a new layer. I've got one stem layer and I've hidden it. Let's create a new layer, and I lock all the other layers because inside of Illustrator it's real easy to do things on layers that you don't want to, so I tend to lock the other ones. Now let's go grab our pen tool, and I'll start in the middle, and then I'll just draw a curved path very similar to what we had before. That's all I need to do. I don't need to close it. I don't need to do anything. But I do need to stroke it with a color. See right down here we have our fill color and we have our stroke color. Right now it's white. If I look at my swatches, I've got 3 green colors over here. I've got a dark green, kind of a medium light green, and then kind of a muted lighter green here. Let's start off with this one. So I'm going to stroke it with that, and if I zoom in and I deselect, you'll see that we do indeed have a stroked path here. So now the rest is pretty simple. Let's duplicate this path. Go grab your selection tool here. Okay, select that duplicate and just use your arrow keys to nudge over that middle one. And do the same thing. Duplicate it. Change the color, and that's what we didn't do in this middle one here, but we'll do it after. Duplicate it, and we'll use the selection tool here. We'll just move that one over, and now we'll go through, we'll change the color. So let's take that middle one, and this will kind of be our middle highlight area, and then let's take the rightmost one, and this will kind of be the shadowy dark side of this kind of rounded object that we're going to create. So if I deselect, you can see we've got 3 different color paths. Now all I need to do is make these into a gradient, and this is where it gets really, really simple. Alright, I'm going to zoom in, and let's select all 3 of them. So click on one, then shift click on the next one, and shift click on the next one. Go to Object, go down to Blend, and choose Blend Options, and make sure you choose Smooth Color in here. Alright, and then you go to Object again, go down to Blend, and there's keyboard shortcuts for all this, but all you need to do is choose Make, and when I choose Make, watch what happens. Check that out. In just a second, it creates a gradient that flows along that path for me. And if I look at it, see down here, we've got the kind of pea color green, and we've got that middle, and then we've got that darker shadowy area. As I go through the whole stem here, you can see it follows the same colors all along here. So we've got our nice highlight, we've got that middle highlight here, and we've got the shadowy area. If you ever need to change the colors, let's say I want to make my shadow area darker, I can come up here, go to my stroke color, and I can make it darker if I want. If I ever want to make this maybe a little more like a highlight, I can choose a lighter green. See how it changes the whole appearance here. So it's a live blend. I can change these colors, and Illustrator will automatically reblend all these objects together. It's really cool stuff. I'm going to go back to this one, and I'll show you one more trick here. So let's take this middle object and let's duplicate it. All right, now it's inside the blend group here. I'm going to drag it outside. So now no longer a part of the blend. So now if I were to move this around and do anything, see, I'm not actually changing my blend by doing that. So let's put it right back in the center. And now let's change the stroke color to maybe white. And if we go under the effect menu, just like Photoshop, we've got blurs. We've got a Gaussian blur. So let's come in here, let's hit it with a 1 pixel Gaussian blur, and now I've given myself a nice little highlight that goes right in the center of that stem. And just like you have in Photoshop, we've got transparency. I could change my transparency, maybe change the blend mode to overlay, drop the opacity down, but I get some really, really nice effects. So, in conclusion, I think while our job every day is teaching you guys Photoshop, you guys out there, you know, you're learning Photoshop, you're using Photoshop every day, you know what it can do. Well, sometimes it's good to know what Photoshop can't do. And sometimes it's good to know where the other programs such as Illustrator and InDesign can come in there and can kind of help out. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you again next time. Thanks.